Like, to me, the Beverly Hills cast is the hardest that I find authenticity. Like, it's the hardest for me to say, oh, I know Kyle Richards. Because I'm like, I don't even know if Kyle Richards knows Kyle Richards.
Yes. It's they on the show, they've become almost what Beverly Hills and Hollywood represent. It's smoke and mirrors.
Yes.
And I'm like, we already know you guys have made a pact. You said it seasons ago at a reunion that you've made a pact not to bring up certain things. I cannot stand the way with what is going on with Crystal, and when Crystal got triggered because of Sutton. It's interesting how they're all allowed to be triggered, but she's not. And I got what she was saying. At the center of all of that with Crystal is Kyle Richards. Kyle Richards had a conversation with Garcelle about race stereotypes.
Welcome back to another Ivory Tower Boiler Room pop culture episode. I love these. I love bringing in the Bravo podcasters, the reality TV podcasters, because there's such an intersection in our everyday life, I believe, with reality TV. So when I first saw Taria Faison's What Else Is Going On podcast, I was thrilled. I love her amplification of voices, of her own experience as a Black female podcaster in the Bravo sphere, which we'll get into because it is so needed. And that voice is not amplified as much as I think it should be with the different casts that we're talking about. So also, I want to mention Taria has another podcast called Tales from a Butterfly, which is a spiritually based personal development podcast. So some really exciting content that you have out there, Taria. So welcome to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room.
First of all, thank you so much for having me. I love the name Ivory Tower. And guys, I'm sure you've seen Andrew, but if you have not, he is so cute, so good looking, gorgeous skin. He's got this shirt on showing his muscles. Don't think I didn't catch that. And he has a wonderful voice. Like, I'm into voices. If you listen to my podcast, you know, my ears are very sensitive to voices. And I feel like you have the perfect podcast voice. I hear so many. And I think sometimes that's why I'll listen to podcasts and don't stop listening. Part of it is because voices do different things to me, like soothe me, or they motivate me, or they make me angry. But you have such a wonderful voice. Thank you so much for having me. Should we tell everybody how long ago we planned?
Yeah,
this?
You could break the fourth wall. That's fine. We're not in a scripted show here.
So we started talking like, I want to say January or February, because I had just moved into my house around that time. And you were like, I know it's far out. And I was like, no, that's great. I like when people give me dates because it helps me plan. And then I was literally driving and thinking today, here we are, like after all those months.
Yeah, here we are. I think you're Zooming from Maryland.
Yes.
Okay.
And you are?
I'm on Long Island.
Long Island. Wait,
Long Island. I know, that's a stereotypical way. But Taria and I grew up close to each other in South Jersey.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. You were a little further south though when I looked into your bio, because I think you're from Cumberland County.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm from Gloucester County. So
and I know where Gloucester is.
Yep. Grew up in a township, Washington Township.
Oh my gosh, like Cherry Hill. Did we talk about that Cherry Hill Mall? Because I worked at Cherry Hill Mall for a while. Yeah. So
okay. Yeah. So all you South Jerseyans, we're going to throw those names out. But when I think
know exactly what we're saying.
So when I think Cumberland County, I think Wheaton Village and that glassblowing place.
Hold up. You know about Wheaton Village?
I went there in elementary school. Yeah.
Okay. And my grandmother, and at one point my dad and my aunt and other family members worked at Wheaton Glass for years. It was like it's, for those of you that don't know, it's a glass making factory. And they would have 8 to 4, 4 to 12, 12 to 8. And they had what was called the hot end. That's the hottest part of the factory that makes the glass. And I just remember my dad having to go, my grandmother going, she retired from there, but she was very much a you never leave out of the house looking a certain way. She was born and raised down south in Florida during like segregation times, pretty much. And so it was a very much, even though I work in a glass factory, she would get up no matter if she was 8 to 4, 4 to 12, or 12 to 8, have her coffee, Folgers, and she would iron her jeans, iron her t-shirts. And I swear that's where I get my love of rings. I don't have any on, but I could wear a ring on every finger. She would have all her gold on, her earrings, her necklaces, her long red nails, and she would just look so glamorous going to work. She would literally roll over in her grave if she saw what I go out looking like sometimes. And sometimes the voice will prick and I'll be like, let me go back in and put something else on. But yeah, so I can't believe you know about Wheaton Village and Wheaton Glass. Oh my God.
Oh, it's such a beautiful place. Like the memories I have to go back. I have a family trip planned in the future. I'm like, I need to go with my family to Wheaton Village because my parents are still in South Jersey.
Where are they at?
So they're still in Washington Township.
Okay.
Yeah, right by Rowan University.
Oh, my cousin graduated from Rowan.
There you go. And soon we're going to be in Atlantic City, which I love.
This is like my uncle used to work at the Claridge, then at like all the my grandmom's favorite casino was Resorts, the Resort Casino.
I love Resorts. They have good food there.
My dad used to work at the Taj Mahal in the boiler room, so know all about the casino. I was offered a job as a cocktail waitress there when I was 21. They used to have to wear this little tiny like little shorts and the suit jackets. I was like, oh yeah. Then their outfits changed and I was not cool with showing my whole behind. So I was like, no, thank you. And I just never even went for my first day.
Oh yeah, the servers definitely have a Hooters attire.
And I was like, nope. And I just did not. I let them take my hair sample, all that stuff. I had my start date. When I found out what the uniforms were, I never went back.
Yeah. Well, there's a friend of mine, Tamra. She actually, I'm not sure, Tamra, shout out to you. If you she lives in Atlantic City. Yeah. She loves Bravo too. So it's all these intersections, but I'm not sure if she still works as a cocktail server, but the story she could tell you of those patrons. Because I tell you, you want to see a scene, go to an Atlantic City casino and people watch. You see all aspects of life.
And they get so mad. So my uncle was a pit supervisor. He started out as a dealer. And then of course, throughout the years, he still works at the casino now, but he's a pit supervisor. And he would be on the blackjack tables. And when they would start losing big, freak out. He just talked to Flavor a couple of weeks ago. He sees all different people come through there when he comes in. I was just in Atlantic City, actually, a couple of weekends ago. My cousin's funeral, they're from Atlantic City. And like I said, my uncle lives there. So his funeral was in Atlantic City. And my other cousin lives in Atlantic City, like right there. So like near the Walk, you know where the Walk is in Atlantic City with all the stores.
Oh, I love that's one of my favorite outlet areas.
Yes. My mom worked at the Atlantic City Board of Education.
Well, I love a good shopping mall that's outside that you can walk to. Like I want it all walkable. I don't like outlets where you have to park in each lot. I'm like, that's not an outlet.
You mean like Foreman Mills and all those?
Yeah. Not necessarily Foreman Mills, but Dollar General. Just kidding. But well, first, I'm sorry about your cousin.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. But we'll definitely, when you're back in Atlantic City, Taria and I are going to have to like hang out.
Yes. Oh, that would be so fun. Okay.
Well, I'm always around there. And when you're on Long Island, well, first you're going to have to.
I've never been.
Okay. Well, you have to come and you're going to have to meet David Yontef. I'm not sure if you know David.
I know David. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll have to get Ebony K. Williams, who
that's my boo.
She's amazing. No, speak of like, let's go there with amplification of voice. Like the way that both you and her know how to just speak the truth is so refreshing that you're not afraid to, say it right out. Because I think that's the issue when it comes to Bravo, especially, is the way these casts have been segregated for so long. Like that. with especially Real Housewives of Atlanta. And then you have Beverly Hills, New Jersey, New York, that Atlanta for the longest time was the only minority
Yes.
cast.
And they were the only one that was not, they were the only one that was integrated. And that was because of Nene, because the producers didn't want anyone white on the show they wanted it all Black.
Oh, so Nene pushed for Kim to be on the cast?
So, and I shouldn't say they didn't want anyone all white because that sounds like, but they wanted an all Black cast. And Nene presented Kim. They said they weren't interested. So Nene told her, girl, just come down. We're having lunch here. Just come down there.
Oh, wow.
And she did. Yeah.
So that's the behind the scenes. Yeah, because I always did think Kim was an interesting, because I watched the beginning seasons. I really liked Alana's chemistry with Nene.
Yes.
And I am back into Atlanta again. I'm watching the current season.
Okay.
I have a take, but with Kim, I always felt like Kim didn't really, like, I could tell she connected to Nene, but when it came to the other women, I'm like, wait, Kim, like, what's the organic relationship here?
Yes. And I feel like it was kind of like like she connected to Nene, but almost like you connect to someone and then you feel like, oh, but these over here are the popular girls. Like I noticed how she gravitated towards Sheree because Sheree may have been aesthetically pleasing to her. You know what I mean? So I'm like, it didn't seem, when she would say how her and Sheree looked alike, ma'am,
wait,
not even the colors. It's like, you look nothing alike. Nothing. So she would say people that we look alike. I was like, girl, who says that?
Yeah. Well, and Nene, we know about the lawsuit. And I'm sure, shout out to Carlos King, who I think is going to have his own Empire. Production line. I don't know what's going on, but I see really great things for what Carlos is doing with his voice.
Yes.
And he's starting to bring some Bravo people in. I mean, he had the first season Atlanta Housewives on his show.
Right. So he's
And I'm like, Andy Cohen, where are you?
And Andy could never, like the way that Carla, are you into the Love and Marriage franchises?
I've watched with Monique because I really like Monique Samuels.
Andrew, no, you have to go back to you have to go to
Love
and Marriage Huntsville. You have to one day decide that you are closing the blinds, getting up, taking a shower, then so you get up, you rinse off the night before, and you put back on your night clothes, and then you order like pizza or all your favorite foods, and I need you to binge Love and Marriage Huntsville. And I'm telling you, that's why when it was announced that Monique and Chris were going to be on, I was like, I don't think she knows what she's in for, because Carlos has a way of making people face the truth about their marriages, and it just like comes out before they even know it. They're like, wait, did that just happen? So yeah.
Okay, well, I will do my DoorDash friendlies. I'm telling you, like, I never
friendlies.
Yes, I never eat friendlies, but I got a DoorDash recently of the fish-a-majig sandwich, and I was in paradise. Like, all I need is that, a Reese's peanut butter cup sundae, and I'm right. There's a comfort from nostalgia of your childhood.
My favorite was their chicken sandwich. They had some type of honey. Something.
I know what you're talking about. It's like the honey super melt.
Yes. It was so good. I used to eat that on my breaks when I worked in the mall. Me and my friend, and sometimes we would split it because it was so big. We was like, so yes.
It sounds so good. Okay. Well, I am going to take you up on watching Love and Marriage.
Okay.
But, and with Monique, it was so interesting when she was doing PR. I mean, not PR, when she was doing publicity for the franchise. She kept saying it's not going to be like Potomac, where there's not going to be this high intensity drama, but there is. Well, I know I raised my eyebrows, but I think what she was getting at is, like you're saying, there's going to be a lot of internal dialogue with herself with Chris, but it's not going to be the Candace Dillard fight dynamic,
right,
with other women.
I feel like she's kind of getting away with it now, because I've go on Twitter, and hands down, my absolute favorite is Ashley. Ashley, so I love her so much on the show. And it's funny because, I never really get into who's on the show, what cast member is liking what tweet, unless it's pointed out. But there have been a lot of tweets that are like, oh, we see who Monique is. She better be glad that Ashley's not really calling her to the carpet. And Ashley's been liking them. And they were saying that Monique was the issue that started the whole Winter Ashley thing. Now, what do you think about Winter? Because I feel like Winter likes to do a lot of little jabs when she feels like someone is jabbing at her. But I feel like Ashley seems like she's pretty straightforward.
Mhm.
Like, what do you think?
Wait, just remind me again. Winter is...
Oh, the one with the shaved hair, the one that married the guy. And she wouldn't go to his house during COVID. So she didn't know that he lived with his mom. And then she ended up marrying him 6 months later. And now they're getting a divorce.
Okay.
You have to...
Is that a friend of? Winter's a friend
I
of,
think
right?
she's sort of, I think she's more of a friend of, but so much of the story is based around her. And I'm like, how is that, work? But only Carlers can do that. So it's interesting. Go back and watch, especially. So basically, Monique was out of town.
Yeah.
And
this is Love and Marriage. Just for
oh
the
yes, I'm
audience to
sorry.
know. Okay, that's
Love
why.
and Marriage.
Wait,
guys.
I'm like,
guys,
that's why I'm
get
thinking
into
of
it.
Potomac. I'm like, wait,
Yes,
Winter.
yeah, you're like, wait, which one is Winter? No. So
Okay,
Love and Marriage. But
Okay.
for those of you that aren't listening, Monique went to Africa I said out of town, like duh, she left maybe the country, but or whatever. But she left, and all the ladies got together to kind of make peace between two of the ladies. And then then it was kind of like, okay, then when Monique got back, she sat down with one and then left that person and sat down with the other and interpreted things, not in a way that they were said, and it caused so much drama. So it's just like, the reason there's no fighting is because I think Ashley's kind of holding herself back a little in some of the other women. So I think that if Winter comes back next season, Monique might need to watch out.
Yeah. Well, that's where it does seem a little naive to think that it's not going to reach with Carlos King too. Yes. I mean, Carlos, he has the producer mind. He knows how to manipulate in a production way the storyline. Yes. So yeah, I mean, okay, yes. Maybe like you said,
it's gonna be drama.
Yeah, and she kind of is in the first season of Love and Marriage, the
like the narrator kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She's the voice of the show.
Yeah.
In a way, kind of what they wanted Heather to be with Orange County, Heather Dubrow, but she let's just say it did not work.
Yeah, yeah.
And I like Heather. Like,
Me
I
too.
like her off the show.
Me too. I like her too. And I wasn't even upset with some of the things that happened on the show. I listened to her podcast, and it was interesting that she would recap the episodes like in full detail. I was like, they're letting you do this? Because she would literally recap the next day the episodes. And so I can see her frustration. And I don't know, I went back and forth because I was like, if this is her, they say she's pretentious, she's this. I'd rather know who someone is and figure out how I'm going to deal with them than maybe someone who I felt like Noella was a whole bunch of people. Mm-hmm. So it's like, well, which one am I getting? Like, I don't like that. I'd rather just know, oh, Emily is this person. Gina is this, this is who I'm dealing with versus trying to figure out who I'm getting every season. I don't know. I keep hearing casting rumors, like they're all coming back. Then you hear Noella's not coming back. Then you hear
I hear Tamra's coming back.
Yeah. Well, Andy Cohen, someone told me they heard Andy on his radio show, and that basically she put the nail in her own coffin because he was, I guess, going to have her back. But he said, how can he have her back when she's talking about the show on her podcast? But that's interesting because Candy has Speak on it, and Heather has her podcast. So
I wonder if it's because she's co-hosting with Teddi Mellencamp.
Right. Oh, and that's what he's just not saying. Right. That's a good point.
Because Teddi knows she's not going to be back on the show. Mm-hmm. I don't think she wants to be back on the show, Teddi.
Yeah.
I mean, have you been watching the new Beverly Hills?
Because of you.
You have? Okay.
I watched the last episode.
Okay.
And then I watched the one right after, the one where Crystal was upset. And then I've been in and out of episodes. Like, I've had to make it my phone show because I get enraged watching. If I watch it straight on.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. I do that too on my phone. Like when I make coffee, I'll like put something on.
Yes, because it's like
you
I'm
can't
really
deal with it
getting
all at once. I get it.
just
Yeah.
Kyle from the very beginning, from the first season, I have always said,
Oh,
Kyle is Kyle is trying to control the narrative. And people feel like Lisa Vanderpump used people. Kyle used Lisa Vanderpump as well. And people say Lisa had Kyle do her dirty work. There's been plenty of scenes when Kyle had Lisa. You could definitely see it, like it being manipulated. And watching her when she decides to go over and join Sutton and Diana and at Garcelle's party, and she's saying, now wait a minute, like everything Diana said, which here's my hot take. Some of the stuff that Diana said about Sutton was actually true. The way she said it would have been a no-go for me. But Kyle interjecting and always on Diana's behalf, I was like, I would have had to tell her, like, they just overtalked her. And I would have wanted her to say, mind your business and be quiet. I'm not speaking to you right now. I'm speaking to you, Diana. Because Diana, as people say, lost me with her arguments outside of what we know about her, of course, in real life. But with the little, you're boring. I can't do boring. It's like, girl, that has nothing to do with nothing.
Remember when she made that like animatronic noise of a robot? Beep bop, beep bop.
It's like you were trying to have a moment, Diana.
And I love listening to Watch What Crappens and their parodies. But I feel with Diana, or actually with Beverly Hills, I feel they really don't even have to parody a lot because these women parody themselves. Like, to me, the Beverly Hills cast is the hardest that I find authenticity. Like, it's the hardest for me to say, oh, I know Kyle Richards, because I'm like, I don't even know if Kyle Richards knows Kyle Richards.
Yes. It's they on the show, they've become almost what Beverly Hills and Hollywood represent. It's smoke and mirrors.
Yes.
And I'm like, we already know you guys have made a pact. You said it seasons ago at a reunion that you made a pact not to bring up certain things. I cannot stand the way with what is going on with Crystal, and when Crystal got triggered because of Sutton. It's interesting how they're all allowed to be triggered, but she's not. And I got what she was saying. At the center of all of that with Crystal is Kyle Richards. Kyle Richards had a conversation with Garcelle about race stereotypes. Kyle took that conversation back to a woman of color that she did not know, who wasn't on the cast the season before and didn't see the tension between Garcelle and Kyle. She took it to her, said her piece about it, wanted Crystal's response. And when Crystal starts to respond from the position of a woman of color, I'm not a Black woman like Garcelle, but we've had similar experiences. Here's a white woman that immediately was like, no, we're not talking about it. And Kyle said nothing. You can interject any other time, but you couldn't say, hold on a minute, Sutton. I asked Crystal about this. And it was like, instead, because it had to do with race, she didn't want to get involved and then didn't want to hear Crystal out about how she felt. At different points in my life, I may have been the Crystal and just not really went into it, but then also at different points. And now I would have been like, no, I'm going to let all of y'all know what happened last night. And I didn't appreciate it as a woman of color. So it's just interesting that all of this with Crystal really, again, leads back to Kyle, because I don't believe for a minute Kyle innocently had a huge conversation like that with Crystal, just because. Like, you had a race conversation with her, and then you let somebody else shut down what she was going to say back. And now it blows my mind. And I think people are starting to see now. I know she's got to move story along, but she does it in a way that aggravates me. Kenya Moore stands up in what she does. Kyle Richards does not. And that's the difference.
Exactly. Well, and with what Crystal, right, the whole dark controversy of Crystal saying what Sutton's narrative about her daughter bringing young women of color to the pool, but like Sutton actually racializing each young woman. Like, I think Crystal is talking about tokenizing, like
Yes.
just saying, I'm going to mention every race category and that shows my diversity. And it's like, that's where I could tell Crystal was coming from.
Yes.
But I think that there was so much pressure for Crystal then to turn to Garcelle, like
Yes.
and like the white women really wanted Garcelle to be the validation. Like,
yes.
do you agree with Crystal? And it's like, oh no, now
And-
we're pitting the two women of color against each other. Okay, hold on to that question because we'll be right back. But first, a word from our sponsor.
And I do feel like at times when you go back to season 1 with Crystal, Garcelle was one of the women telling Crystal to choose a different word. Here is a Black woman telling this other woman of color whose voice, and I get that Sutton was her girl. So me, I feel like I would have wanted to be like, hold up. What happened in there for you to say that? She didn't. She immediately went to her girl's side. But to me, when you're talking about issues of race, I'm always going to want to know what somebody who looks like me or is brown, what happened? I'm never just going to assume that they're wrong. I'm not even necessarily going to assume that they're right. I'm open to, but I need to hear what they have to say. I need them to have a voice to say it because I know what it's like not to have a voice. So in that, it was interesting last year when you go back and you watch how they were all telling Crystal, that's a strong word. That's a strong word. None of them asking what exactly happened, but Kyle knew. But then at the end of the season, it was let Garcelle speak. Let Garcelle speak. And sometimes I feel like, do people think they maybe can't support two differences at once? It's like, we got to support Black women. Okay, now we can support other men. So it was interesting to watch these women, even Garcelle at times not realizing what you're doing to Crystal is what these women did to you.
Yeah. But like, I think, unfortunately, right, we're getting to what is so important, which is that I think Bravo has had such red flags with, which is integrating a cast, because they've done it, in my opinion, they've done it in such tokenized ways. And well, just have to turn to your discussions with Ebony, with what happened with her, with Roni, and like throwing her, in my opinion, to the wolves.
Yes, like, with the audience and with her cast. And real quick, I meant to say how you said Sutton tokenized. It was interesting how she told a story about something that happened before she met Crystal, and she was able to see color then. But you couldn't see color when Crystal had a head-on conversation with you. So what at that point made you stop and say, wow, we have all of these different nationalities, ethnicities, races in my hot tub? So you were that self-aware before you met Crystal, but then after you met her, when Crystal said, let me ask you, are you that girl? She says, I don't see color. If you don't see color, then that train of thought would have never even come to your mind, the hot pool. So I'm like,
good point. Yes.
Y'all don't even see it. But with Ebony, I felt like it was definitely a setup. And it's almost like, oh, y'all want a Black woman? Here, boom, we're going to give you her. We're going to give you a certain type, quote, in quotes, Black woman. And then it'll be, well, we tried to give you somebody Black and look, it didn't work out. So it's like,
it felt like a setup, like you're saying. Well,
like
I do have to say and I've, conveyed this to Ebony, like, via DMs, and Ebony is just, everyone should watch, even when she's interviewed by Z-Way, which is hilarious. Like, Ebony knows the media market and is so well-versed, and she was on radio and she, was on Fox, so understood that demographic and going against the grain. But I've always said that when she went on Roni, the walls were up with at least 2/3 of that cast. Like, I think Leah tried to show tried
Yeah.
to
Yeah, she
show her
tried.
allyship, but I think Leah, when push came to shove, was like, no, I'm gonna go with the white women, because they're like trying to
Yep.
maintain their jobs. And
Yep.
I lost a lot of respect for Leah, because I thought she was she's an entrepreneur,
Right.
but I think she appropriates Black culture
Yeah.
with her fashion line. But
Yes.
streetwear.
Have you seen those videos? And right, the streetwear, it's like, girl, have you seen some of her marketing
No,
videos?
what are the videos?
They're like one of them is like they're in a pink. Think of like Snoop Dogg and like California, that song California Love. Is that Snoop Dogg or is that Tupac? But you know how they would have the Cadillacs like bouncing, and
Okay.
those are what some of her videos are.
Oh.
Yeah. With chicken and watermelon.
Oh. Okay.
He just literally rolled back in his chair.
Well, and I did listen to her chaos theory memoir, because I'm always up for, I love listening, as I'm sure you do. I like to hear their own narratives. That's what I love about the Housewives, is their narratives, their stories. It tells us about our own psychology and our obstacles, right?
Yep.
I think it's the best conflict resolution show we have out there to talk through things. But I think Leah would say that she's upfront of how messy she is. So it's like, well, I'm full of chaos. So, that's my MO, but it's
right. And
it's an interesting mode.
If your chaos starts to fall into dangerous territory, like for me, certain things I don't, you can't be passive aggressive about, you can't be chaotic about, and that's like human life. Like and so like these race conversations, Leah knows that she probably ran in circles where there were no Black people, right? And they may misunderstand people like Ramona, I'm sure, or like some of these other women. You ran in those circles, so you understand the importance of trying to reason with these, not necessarily trying to reason with these women, but of Black voices or women of color voices not being heard in these different segments of society. So she made a public show of being down for Black culture when there was no Black woman on the cast. Then when the Black woman came on the cast, she tried it for a bit until Ebony's night in Harlem, which so many people, viewers included, had a problem with it. And I said, well, wait a minute. It was supposed to be a night with Ebony K. Williams, and it was supposed to be about what she's interested in.
Yep.
All of these things she's interested in. We've developed a relationship offline. So we talk, and the Ebony you get on the show is the Ebony that is not on the show. So Ebony
and I was going to say, she's well-versed in the Harlem Renaissance literary figures. Like that is Ebony's
her
intellectual
world.
passion.
Yeah. And it was like, they didn't even give it a chance. Like she used to be on something called State of the Culture with Remy Ma, Joe Button. I forget the other gentleman's name. So the Ebony that people get on the show and her talking about Blackness, that is her in real life. I have literally been on the phone with her having conversations, and one would think, oh, wait, she was talking about that on the show. But we're talking like, this is like real life stuff. I'll text her and say, hey, what do you think about this? And it's the same Ebony. And that's what I appreciate. And I was honest with her. She came on the show twice. And the first time I was very upfront with her. And I said, listen, at first, when she came on, I said, I don't have to hear about Blackness all the time. Like, everything is something. And then Brian Moylan, who I'm sure we all know, wrote a recap of the episode.
I interviewed him.
Okay. And he wrote about Ebony's night in Harlem. And I'm like, wait a minute. And then Ebony responded back. And she said, because I refuse to allow whiteness to be centered, that's a problem. I expect better. And it was like immediately my eyes opened. I was like, what am I thinking to say, I don't need to hear about Blackness? I do. I like outside of like in certain circles, that's what I talk about because I am a Black woman with a Black husband and a Black son and Black daughters and a father and brothers and a mother and uncles and cousins and, you know, close friends that are Black. Like, yeah, I do want to talk about that. And I realized that it was a bit triggering for me because I went to an elementary school where it was me and 3 other Black people in a school that had 3rd through 8th grades, 2 of each grade. And so you're talking about hundreds of students and there's 3 of us. And being raised in a house where we want to keep you safe, we know that any excuse they can use to pinpoint the Black girl that had the highest grades in the class until my talking became an issue. And then let's deduct for this. And so my mom and dad were like, listen, you need to get through school. So you need to. So I realized that seeing Ebony being so free and talking about it in every circle was a reminder that there were times when I didn't talk about it in every circle. And to forget about white comfortability or other like we should be able to have these conversations with each other, white, Black, whatever, to have a mutual respect for
the
each other.
LGBTQ community.
LGBTQ, the trans
I feel that
community.
way. Like people ask me, like, do I ever come out? And it's like, I'm out in every aspect of my life because
that's a good question.
You know, like I am openly gay, but like, I'll just say, you know, oh, even to my barber, this came up. Never had a discussion about my sexuality, but he was talking about, I don't know, a woman he was going to go on a date with. And I'm like, oh yeah, I have a tennis partner who, you know, I might have a crush on and we're going to go out to dinner and just mention it that way. But that's also because I've done a lot of work internally with my own sexuality. I've been out since I was a freshman in high school. I'm now almost 30. So like, I just feel I don't need that constant coming out narrative with people.
Okay. So what was there a time when you only talked about it in certain circles and then other circles? It's not that you just didn't mention it just because.
Yeah. I think in high school was more of my seeing where I felt comfortable talking about it. But, you know, at a certain point, I feel, of course, there's going to be people, like if there are people who don't want me to mention it, you know, that's on them. Like, then they're not of like minds with me. But it is a difficult, like, but I think that being a gay white man of a certain, you know, privilege is very different in my opinion than if I was even a Black gay man. You know, like you get read differently. And that's where I feel that especially the New York Housewives, that there was not an understanding of intersectionality, like of identities. And I saw that a lot with Luann. Yes. And, like that whole remember the first real tense moment she has with Ebony
at their house, at her house,
about education. But it's like on paper, Ebony has more education and is more like, it took more credentials for Ebony to get into the door for the Housewives.
Yes. And
like,
Luann wouldn't step back for a moment and said, you know what, I did use the wrong word, but this is what I meant. She kept saying, I didn't say. And I think that's the problem. It's like sometimes on these shows and even in real life situations, nobody wants to say, well, no, we're talking about A. And when it comes to A, your words said blah, blah, blah. And Luann couldn't even say, oh, you know what? I did say it, but that's not what I meant. She just kept saying, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Don't come into my house and tell me you have more education. But like you said, but the facts are, I do.
Mm-hmm. And Ebony wasn't making a moral judgment of Luann.
No, I think you just nailed it. She wasn't making a moral judgment. I'm stating facts. I'm stating facts based off of what you just said. I didn't just pull this out of, and then when they said that she was yelling, but when Leah was in there screaming and when Ramona was banging on the table, but Ebony was yelling. Okay.
I know. Well, but to talk about the Diana Jenkins in the room.
Andrew, I was just smiling.
Well, I was going to say, can we talk about, well, first, credit to Philly Diva, because I had seen her account and like her Diana's response, and I like shared out to Diana and I tagged Diana, and I'm just like, this rhetoric is not appropriate. Like, this is racist. The way you're calling her a Black content creator, she should be saddened to be that. And for me, I don't like being gaslit. Like, we see what you're doing, like admit to your wrongdoing, and that's it. Like, why can't Diana just say, that was that was racist rhetoric, and I need to talk through this with Philly Diva. Like, why not just go on an Instagram live or be educated? Like, what's wrong with the education?
Yes. Or say that I was wrong, even if her intent wasn't that, let's just say.
Yeah.
But the impact you had on Philly Diva was not a good one. And you couldn't even reach out to her privately and say, I'm sorry. Not even but my intent. No. Because the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So you couldn't even reach out to her and say, hey, this is what I meant. Like, and then when she responded to Garcelle and said, I've donated to Haiti, that means nothing. Do you know how many people donate for tax write-offs? Do you know how many people donate so they can say, oh, I'm not racist? Okay, you might not be racist, but you may be biased. That's still a thing. Mm-hmm. There's lots of things under the umbrella of racism.
Internalized racism.
Yes, and all of that, like the way that she was, I am not the biggest Sutton fan, because I feel like what we saw of Sutton last season, and like I said, some of the things that Diana was saying were true. However, I don't feel like Sutton is irredeemable. I feel like Sutton is willing to listen. Now, does she have to be comfortable to listen? And that's a different conversation. I think so. But I feel like Diana is intentionally trying to gaslight Sutton because she knows Sutton can be emotional, which that is okay because we all have emotions. Like, we're supposed to use them. Yeah. So I feel like she's goading.
Oh, Sutton she loved when Sutton was crying. Like,
yeah, that.
And also, can we like just say Kyle? For me, Kyle, not even touching, but like pulling Sutton was really. I thought it was so upsetting. I'm like, Kyle, why are you physically hurting Sutton?
She had the right one. Like, girl, if you don't get your hands off me now, we are going to have a problem. It's not even going to be about Diana anymore. Get your hand. Like, in that moment, I feel like if I was there, because right is right and wrong is wrong. Yeah. And I understand why Garcelle got up, but it was like also leaving Sutton to the wolves. But it's interesting because when you think about Sutton and her situations that she's gotten into with race, right? And then we look at Diana, then we look at Garcelle. Do you find someone may say something that you're part of the LGBTQ plus community, so it's under the homophobic umbrella, and somebody else that may be part of the LGBTQ will say, well, I didn't necessarily think it was homophobic. Sometimes you got to watch that too, because who are you trying to appease? Or you may know somebody that you're in relationship with, whether it be work, let's say work, and they say or do little behaviors that you're like, definitely don't think they are homophobic. However, there's some ignorance. So, but because you know what you're getting, you're okay with certain relationships that you have to have. I feel like people look at Garcelle and say, Garcelle's friends with Sutton, therefore Sutton must be okay. I look at it like Garcelle knows what kind of white woman that Sutton is, which is why when Cherie showed up to the party, she said, here's my backup. She didn't say that about Sutton, who she's known for a year. She said Cherie was her backup. So I feel like Sutton and Garcelle are developing. a friendship. I feel like it's an alliance and maybe they become friendly, but I also think maybe Sutton will hear Garcelle more so than she may hear another Black woman or woman of color that she doesn't know. Diana is not hearing anybody, and the aggression.
And her lawsuits too, right? Do you know Diana
Yes.
like had this whole lawsuit about like she was gonna call the cops on the security guard who was Black, who like Diana had
Andrew.
some team come in and trim like the hedges, no, trimmed the trees
They
so
should have
that
cut
the view.
down. They should have
It was
scalped
awful.
her lawn. Woke up with my name written in your lawn in dirt
Yeah.
because you
Well,
know
because Diana knows how to, right? If you're gonna say, I'm gonna call the cops on you to a Black man who's a security guard, she's weaponizing race. Like
and
she
knows
knows
it.
how the police, the, you know,
Come on.
police dynamic, the police brutality that
Yes.
exists. That's the thing is Diana is not, that's the whole beep bop boop, whatever
Yes.
she's doing.
Yes.
I can't because she went to, she has like a degree in economics. Like she exactly knows what she's doing with
Yes.
manipulating. And you're right.
Yes.
She knew how to manipulate Sutton. Also, can we talk about Lisa Rinna at the reunion? And when Garcelle said, Irie was told that Lisa, you didn't want a Black woman to join the cast, and how that's been dropped. I'm like, wait.
It's definitely been dropped. And you know
like,
who allegedly said it, right?
Storyline. Who said it?
Multiple sources that know people on the Beverly Hills or adjacent on the cast, or like maybe people that work for that particular franchise have said that it was Kathy Hilton that told Garcelle, because Kathy really likes Garcelle, which I thought it was ignorant of Kyle to say, oh, let me tell you what Pasadena means. Oh, so in other words, you know how close Kathy and Garcelle are, and you wanted Garcelle to know, oh, my sister just couldn't come. Because when Garcelle said, I read a message that said Pasadena, instead of Kyle being like, oh yeah, if it was me and I'm not trying to really hurt your feelings, I would have been like, oh yeah, I guess I haven't really talked to her. I guess she had to go out there. She says Pasadena is a word we used when we said we'll pass. So you want Garcelle to think that Kathy just didn't want to come to her party. She just passed it. Because why else would you? I would not have told her that.
No.
Like at all. Like, and we're at her party. I wouldn't have told her that. Like, that's kind of messed up.
Well, I think Kathy Hilton, well, by the time this comes out, she will have appeared. But I know Kathy Hilton came late because of Paris in Love.
Yes.
Like she wasn't going to maybe it's contractual probably, or I wouldn't want to commit to 2 reality shows.
That's a lot. That's
a lot.
People always in your house.
Yeah. But like, I know Kathy, you're right. The support and Denise Richards. I also wondered, remember when Denise Richards said to Camille a few seasons back, like, I know a lot about you, Camille, and the way you talk about race. And I was wondering, maybe Denise knows Lisa Rinna's attitude.
Yes.
Because Garcelle and Denise are so, they're very close.
Yes, you're absolutely
and
right.
I think Denise is a good one.
Me too. I wish she would. I understood, okay, she talked about the penises and all that one year. Then the next year, it's not that she didn't want to talk about it. She did. They were loud at the table and her kids were a table behind, but she was literally in the middle of going through a custody battle and they knew that. So to me, I felt like that's where her head was, like, literally going through a custody battle.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and then Brandy lit a firework as Brandy. I like Brandy's chaos. I do. I'll admit. I think for TV, she is cuckoo. Like but she knows what she's doing. That's why they bring Brandy. Like Brandy's the dynamite to a party.
Her typing sorry to Eva the next morning and looking at her hands missing that one nail. I said, so here her hand is looking wretched. She's missing one nail. We've all been there. And she's typing, I'm sorry. I said, that is a metaphor for Brandy's life. Like, missing nail.
Yeah. Well, and I really, but like back to, we'll definitely get to Ultimate Girls Trip because I need to know.
Yeah.
First of all, I think it's one of my favorites right now that's out. I am
too. I agree.
Yeah. I think they're doing a really good job, this cast dynamic. But so again, I'm surprised a lot of people aren't bringing up the explosive moment with Lisa and Garcelle at the reunion, because I'm like, oh, we're gonna follow up on this. Like and maybe there is, right? Again, they're only showing us
Right.
so many, they're only crafting a certain narrative of footage. So like even when you were talking about Garcelle with Sutton, like, and Diana, who knows if Garcelle, I'm sure she said much more.
But they might have cut that out. Yeah. And again, too, it was her party. Like, I wouldn't have wanted to be in the middle with that. It's like she went over there to check on it. And I can see why it's just like, oh, I'm not like getting involved.
Yeah. And I find that they cut, to me, they like when I'll see a deleted scene, that I really actually like the footage they don't show, because to me, it's the more nuanced. It gives more of the women their voice. And I'm not always happy with this B-roll, or it's not B-roll, but the very quick pace narrative, because I'm like, wait, what is, that's why I like Ultimate Girls Trip, because I'm actually getting their behind the scenes. I want the behind the scenes. Like,
me too. And it also shows you, to me, depending on what they're cutting, it shows you who a person really is. Think about when they were at dinner, was it last season or the season before last? It might have been Garcelle's first season. And Garcelle asked Lisa, do you ever blame yourself for what your daughter's going through? And then in the deleted scene, it shows Garcelle talking about her blaming her son for Oliver's past issues, and then relating to Lisa, mother to mother. I blame myself. Have you ever blamed yourself? And they have this heartwarming conversation. They don't show that part. Then they show it in a deleted scene. Then they get to the reunion, and Teddi, who was there and witnessed the real actual connection with Lisa and Garcelle, brings up, well, you asked Lisa, you tried to basically, she said, and I'm paraphrasing, but Garcelle, you blame Lisa for her daughter's actions. To me, knowing that we've all may have seen that deleted footage because they played it, for you to try to use that as an argument against Garcelle, I was like, that shows what type of person you are. And she continues to say, because I tell my listeners, I took a bullet for the Patreon and listened to some of the Two T's in the Pod. I'll report back. But she keeps calling out Garcelle. And we've offered Garcelle to come on the show, but Garcelle's not going to come unless Garcelle said she would only come if it was just Tamra. Well, she doesn't like you. Like,
well, and Teddi, you keep dragging Garcelle's name, that she's inauthentic. I listen. I actually am an avid listener because
Tamra's good.
No, I love Tamra's takes. Well, and let's just say Teddi, I mean, let's see the new episode that comes out, but does not mention Diana Jenkins' racist rhetoric. Yeah. And never critiques the Fox Force 5. I'm like, sorry, but sometimes you're going to have to give a hot take on, Erica Jane, who isn't just fun and dynamic. She is problematic and actually hurtful. She's a hurtful person, especially the way she's been dragging Garcelle and her children. Like, but yet, if it was Kyle's children, Teddi would be so upset if Garcelle dragged Kyle's daughters.
Yes. And the way Erica was so upset that Garcelle mentioned Lisa Rinna's daughter in the book. But to me, if she mentioned it to break down that scene that we saw, in case people didn't see the deleted scenes, I think she has every right in mentioning it, because y'all are a part of her story. And she didn't put anything out there that we didn't already know. So she's saying this is what happened. But now y'all don't have that same energy for Erica saying that to Garcelle. Now, if Garcelle had snatched her up off that couch, then the discussion would have been, Garcelle, you're wrong. I mean, I think about Kyle. Kyle gets handsy. Think about in the beginning seasons when they were at, was it her all-white party? And her daughter was dancing with Mauricio. And then a blonde woman came up and started dancing with Mauricio, and she shoved her. Stay away from my husband. Have you ever seen that scene?
No, I have to look it up because I remember
Oh,
when
I'll send
she's
it
been
to you.
handsy with Brandy and the
Yeah.
pizza with Kim.
Oh,
And
she was
remember, Kim's
hands.
like, "Where's my pizza?" And Brandy's like, "It's on the floor."
And what about when
Or
the
game
kid
night.
when she revealed that Kim was an alcoholic, she almost grabbed her and then she pulled herself back.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna send you the scene. A lady starts dancing with Mauricio, and
Yeah, no,
she
send it to me.
literally
Definitely.
shoves her.
Yeah. Well, and I have a close connection with Dana Wilkie.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I love Dana. Dana goes there with everything with her gossip.
Yeah. Yeah.
And breaks down the fourth wall. And that's okay. Well, let's get to Andy Cohen. Maybe this is our part 2. Let's leave the listeners in suspense, which is I told Taria we're gonna find it. I think it's this, which is our hot takes on Andy Cohen. And if we are if you don't know where Andrew Rimby is after this, maybe I've been snatched to Fire Island by Andy Cohen.
I may have to come find you. Don't worry. I will
know.
come look for you.
Wow. Okay. What are Taria's feelings about Andy Cohen? What is her hot take? And what is my hot take? I'm not revealing it to you all right now because guess what? You all heard we're about to do a part 2. So there's going to be, at least a week or 2 of an intermission. So be on the edge of your seats. I'm going to release the audio in the near future. I'm not sure where the audio is going to be released. I'm still talking things out with Taria. Also, you'll probably even see me on her podcast in the near future. So make sure you follow Taria. Her personal Instagram is at TS Faison, Faison. And please, please, please make sure you listen to her podcast. It is called What Else Is Going On? So you can listen wherever you get your podcasts. Listen right now after you hear this episode and follow her on Instagram at WEIGO We I Go podcast. And I'm in Southampton right now. So who knows which housewife I just ran into? Don't worry. If I run into a housewife, it's going to be at Ivory Tower Boiler Room on our Instagram. Bethany Frankel, maybe Jill Zarin, maybe Dorinda Medley, maybe even Countess Luann, Ramona Singer. I heard she does frequent Southampton a lot. So I cannot wait to release part 2. Part 2 also will be available as our video on our Patreon. You actually are going to be able to listen to part 1 and 2 on our video before anyone listens to part 2 on the podcast, which means become a Patreon subscriber, patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room. And I will drop an audio release letting you know when the video has premiered on Patreon. So I'm going to go back and enjoy the Hamptons and, be with my parents because I need a little more bonding time with them. And I hope you all enjoyed when they came on to the Atlantic City Evelyn Nesbitt episode. I loved having them on. So I'm not going to have them on right now, but maybe again in the future. We'll see. We'll see how they respond to all the accolades. Okay. Sending you all good health. Enjoy your summer. Go to the beach. Go to the mountains, whatever you have around you. Just maybe you want to binge watch shows, binge watch The Housewives. Enjoy it. Enjoy everything and be safe and healthy. That's all that matters. Okay. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room or True Crime in Academia. I'm Andrew Rimby, the executive director. Our team includes Mary DePippi, our chief contributor, Nicole Arguello, our marketing assistant, and Kimberly Dallas, our editor. Ivory Tower Boiler Room episodes come out on Monday, and sometimes I'm joined by a guest co-host. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Ivory Tower Boiler Room and on Twitter at Ivory Boiler Room. And here's Mary.
Hello, everyone. I am the host of True Crime in Academia. Do not forget to follow True Crime in Academia on Instagram and TikTok at True Crime in Academia. And coming soon, there will be a Twitter also at True Crime in Academia. Now, if you're like me, you like to have bonus episodes. I love extra content, don't you? So go to patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room. Not only do you have access to our video interviews, but you will also be able to access never before seen bonus episodes. So like I said, we don't release them anywhere else. You can only get those on Patreon. So go to patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room and become a subscriber today. And don't forget to listen to Ivory Tower Boiler Room on Mondays and True Crime and Academia on Tuesdays.